Hey PCWorld fans, Adam here with the sequel to my favorite USB-based DAC. This is the Creative Sound Blaster X4. In this video I want to give you a tour of the device compared to the X3 to see how big of an upgrade it is, and try to convince you that you should invest in better sound since no one can get a GPU right now. But first, let's check out what's in the box. Included in the box is the X4 unit, some instructions that you definitely should be reading, a 2-meter Type A to Type C USB 2.0 cable, and a 1-meter Toslink optical cable. The X4 retails for $150, which is actually a $10 increase over the X3, and works with a whole host of hardware from consoles to Macs, but in this video I'm focusing on the PC. Next, let's talk about the physical hardware before moving on to the specs and software. And compared to the X3, there really is only one important change hardware-wise. The X4 maintains the same single freewheeling large knob and 3 control buttons on the top, 1/8" mic and headphone ports on the front, and lots of ports on the back. Both share 1/8" line-out connections for surround sound, optical SPDIF out, and USB-C for transmitting power and audio, but the X4 trades a standard 1/8" line-in port for a combo 1/8" line-in/optical in port for more versatility. The included optical cable is actually terminated with this in mind and has come in quite handy. This is a nice upgrade and one I actually use in my 2PC setup. To finish off the hardware differences, you can see that the finish on the X4 has changed from a matte black to this gunmetal charcoal look. Creative has also added the name of the device under the logo, offset it to the right, and added the Super X-Fi logo to the left. On the underside, there are still 4 rubber feet that have plenty of grip, and finally the X4 is a bit heavier at 384 grams compared to 330 grams. Also, the X4 is 1 millimeter longer and wider compared to the X3. Now let's talk more in depth about the hardware controls. Similar to the X3, the controls on the X4 can be confusing and a bit overwhelming. It's great that you can do so many things with onboard presses, but each button has toggles indicated with lights, and honestly, it was just too much for me to remember. For example, the big volume control knob adjusts volume, duh, but by pressing it in, you can change what else it controls, which is indicated by the light ring around it. Blue means playback, red means mic, green, orange, cyan means audio balance, and by pressing and holding, you can activate Bluetooth pairing. Every button has these different states to cycle through, and boy is it a lot. I think this is probably the biggest downside to this hardware, and I literally had to keep the cheat sheet around to help me remember the control options. But after a while, I only memorized the commands I used regularly, like toggling on and off Super X-Fi, and then did everything else in the app. Before we get into the app, let's review the specifications of the hardware. There are similarities when it comes to the converters, which is great because the X3 already had great specs, but the changes that are present in the X4 are actually downgrades compared to the X3. Things like no support for 32-bit playback resolution and no 192 kHz options on any of the recording inputs. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm going to miss any of these downgrades or that they are essential for what I do, but it's confusing to see downgrades in the first place. I'm not sure if this is caused by a hardware or software change, but paired with a $10 increase in pricing, it just doesn't make any sense from the outside. Either way, both systems feature absolutely phenomenal DACs, and despite the lower specs on the X4, I couldn't hear any differences in either professional work applications or while gaming. Believe me, for the average user, this DAC is more than capable of producing and recording great audio. Now back to the app. It seems like Creative is finally settling on one app for new hardware. This is great news because the X3 uses the older Sound Blaster Command app, and the X4 uses the newer Creative app, which is more streamlined. I've used 3 different pieces of Sound Blaster hardware now that all use the same app, and it's worked out fine. The Super X-Fi setup process is still not great, like I mentioned in my Sound Blaster GC7 review, but it's worth it. Inside the app, you have the typical playback and recording options, and a whole host of features to play with based on the connected hardware. From basic controls like EQ to creative-specific features like Crystal Voice and Scout Mode, most of which I don't use, the X3 and the X4 are similar, just with an updated interface. But new to the X4 is the Smart Comms kit, which includes voice detection gating and noise canceling. Fun features if you need them, but to tell you the truth, I didn't, so it's not a huge selling point for me. Whew, okay, so that was a lot of info, but let's get to some buying advice. First off, if you already have an X3, is it worth it to upgrade to the X4? That's an easy answer, no. Like I mentioned at the start, the X3 has been my go-to pick for most people upgrading their audio experience, and the X4 is just a small iteration on that same awesome hardware. Sure, the new app is great, and the optical in-jack is welcome, but it's not enough for those who already have an X3. More importantly, if you don't already have a dedicated DAC, which one should you get? Well, this is an easy answer, either. Both have amazing sound quality, extra features like Super X-Fi, and allow for a whole host of hardware and software configurations. I'd personally swing for the X4 despite the couple lower specs, but the X3 is still very relevant if you want to save a few bucks. And with the graphics card market the way it is, I've always argued that right now is the perfect time to invest in audio. Moving up from motherboard audio and cheap headphones is just as big a leap as upgrading graphics, and it's easier to get your hands on audio gear right now. With that in mind, I think both the X3 and the X4 are awesome external DAC options, and you'll thank me once you finally upgrade your audio. Thank you for watching this review video. If you found it informative, please give it a thumbs up. And be sure to subscribe to PCWorld for more PC hardware and software goodness.